welcome back to another episode of Jacey's Creek. My name's Emily, and today is the last episode of season 3. It's episode 23, True Love. Came out, I believe, on May 24th, 2000. That's weird to say that we're like completely done with season 3. I've been working on right now I'm working on season 5 and season 6 to get everything done. I'm working on the drawings for season 4 right now, but I have like everything like with my notes, like I have that completely done. So it's weird right now because like I'm ahead of time right now. It's like March right now, and so I've been trying to get all these episodes done, and so whenever I say something like that, I'm like, wow, like it's so weird. It takes me so long to record these episodes, and I'm really excited to kind of get all this done and like share my thoughts. Like that's the whole point of this. So I've been trying to get like my notes done, my drawings done, so that way I can just go through them all and have a lot of fun with it, because it's really simple and really easy. I just kind of overthink it a lot of times because I'll sit there and I'm like, I should do this. I should make it pretty like this, when no one's gonna see my notes at all. But at the end of the day, this is my favorite thing. And like I talked about last episode, I wanted to do this podcast because it shows everyone my thoughts of Jacey's Creek, and it shows everyone how I'm doing. And this is one of the best episodes that we're probably ever gonna cover, besides a couple in season 6 and season 4. And it's just, there's so many thoughts on this, and especially with Dawson. I don't like Dawson in this episode, and I think you all know I don't like Dawson at this point, so it's a little bit hard to like kind of comprehend how Dawson's feeling in this episode, but we'll get into that. So without further ado, I want to say, make sure to follow my Instagram, that's Witter and Potter. Make sure to follow my TikTok, that's Pacey and Joey, and make sure to go to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and go through all these episodes right over again, because there's a whole playlist for season 2 and season 3 and season 1. So without further ado, let's get into this. So the first scene that we have is scene 1 of Joey, of course, and she is Mitch and Dawson are exiting the store while Gail and Joey are walking up to join them. And Mitch says, well, this isn't my blushing bride-to-be and her maid of honor. And Gail says, hi, and they kiss. And Gail says, we stopped by Sally's for a peek, and Debbie said the dresses will be ready tomorrow. But the cake is ready right now, so I want you to come see it. And Mitch says, let's go. And Gail says, bye, honey. Thanks, Joey. And they leave, and Joey says bye. And Dawson says, they're happy as I've ever seen them, if you can believe that. And Joey says, I can't. So how's the ring? And Dawson says, it's beautiful. And the dresses? And Joey says, oh, your mother is gorgeous. However, I'm starting to believe that everything I heard about the unflattering natures of the bridesmaid dresses. And Dawson says, I'm sure you'll look amazing. And Joey says, thanks for doing. And he goes, Joey, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Which I'm like, Dawson, hey, she's not doing it for you. She's doing it for your mom, because your mom is like a mother to her. So, and Joey says, Dawson, it was an honor when your mom asked me. How could I refuse? And Dawson says, yeah, I know, it means a lot to her, but it means a lot to me too. I can imagine you not being a part of the ceremony and desire any but awkwardness this may stir up. And Joey says, it's an important day for your parents, and I'm counting on to change either our lives. So it's not going to stir anything up unless we let it, right? And Dawson says, my point exactly, yeah. And Joey says, so you know what? I have to go. I have something to borrow, but I don't have anything blue yet. And Dawson says, it shouldn't be that hard. It seems like a lot that around these days. And for me, I think like it would be kind of cool if Dawson was like, hey, I can help you out with that. Like, let me see what else we can do. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't offer her anything. He doesn't say, do you need anything? He just constantly goes like, oh, thanks for doing this for me. And I'm like, buddy, she's not doing this for you. She's doing this for your mom, who you should know by now, knows Joey for like since she was like 5 years old. So there's that. So then we have scene 1 of Pacey, where this scene is on the dock by True Love, and Doug is talking to Pacey about the trip while Pacey is bringing in some supplies aboard. And Doug says, "Hey Pacey, are you sure this trip is a good idea?" And Pacey says, "I already cleared it with Dad. Stay close to shore, call home every week, I know the drill." And Doug says, that's not exactly what I'm talking about." And Pacey says, "Are you gonna miss me? Is that what it is, Doug?" And Doug says, "Yeah, what you think what you're leaving behind is going to be much bigger when you are out there all alone. Does Joey know that you're leaving?" And I feel like there's a lot of things going on in this episode. Like, Doug is more concerned about Joey knowing, because he knows that if his brother comes home later, then it's going to be kind of like how Dawson came home, where everything was like a lot of tension going on, and there was no one making up, and there was all this different kind of stuff. And I think Doug knew, like, in his age, with his teenage brother, like, if you don't go tell Joey about everything and how you feel, and kind of like Andy said last episode, if you don't tell her you love her, then everything's gonna go away. Like, everything's just gonna be a mess, and you're gonna feel bad. And Pacey says, if she does, I didn't tell her. And Doug says, "So I guess she doesn't know how you feel about her either." And Pacey says, "She knows how I feel." And Doug says, "Pacey, have you spelled it out to her? I mean, clear, underweighed terms. Have you done that?" And Pacey says, "And what exactly do you need to spell out?" "I mean, in clear, underwaving terms, have you..." sorry. "What do you think would..." "Unclear, underwaving terms, have you done that?" And Doug says, "And what exactly do you think would happen if I did that, Doug?" And Doug says, "Worst case, nothing. Best case, she gives you a reason to stay." And Pacey says, "You see, that right there is what happens to a male mind when it's exposed to many Katharine Hepburn movies." I'm sorry, that kind of made me laugh. I don't know why. And Doug says, "Every time that you look at the stars, you're going to see her face. You can't run away from her, Pacey." And Pacey says, "Well, I can try." And I feel like this is like, I want to say it's a good trait of Pacey, where he just leaves everything as it is, but also there's so much tension going on, and it's pretty clear that, like, Dawson is that type of person who will always go, hey, you know, like that annoying kid who, like, taps you on the shoulder and they go, hey, like that. It's kind of like that. Like, Dawson's like that, while Dawson is, well, Pacey is that person who is, like, in the corner just kind of minding their own business, coloring, at the times kind of does something where he throws a hammer at another kid, like, kind of like that. But, like, there's so many, like, things that just goes on where I'm like, Pacey, I get it. Like, I really get it. Sometimes you just have to leave things be, but you can't just run away from your problems, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like Bessie said, like, if you leave things as they are, like, they're eventually going to catch up to you, and this is real life. Like, this isn't the world. And she goes on, like, I think 2 episodes ago, where your actions have consequences. And when Pacey kissed her, his consequence was trying to figure out what it was, and then when he figured out what it was, he fell in love with Joey even before he kissed her, and now he has to deal with the consequences of Dawson. And Joey has to deal with that, and it's pretty obvious if you look into Joey that she doesn't want to be with Dawson. And kind of doesn't want to be with Pacey, but she wants to be with Pacey, because if she's with Pacey, everything will make sense. But with Dawson, it doesn't make sense, and I feel like that's where this kind of comes in. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 2 of Joey, and she's along the road, and she's driving when she hears sirens pull behind her, and Doug pulls her pulls her around in the cop car, and he walks over, and she rolls down the window, and he goes, "Excuse me, driver's license and registration, please." And Joey says, "You're kidding me, right?" And Doug says, "Driver's license and registration, please. Miss Potter, I clocked you going." And Joey says, "You have a radar gun?" And Doug says, "Visible accession. You're going 5 to 7 miles per below the posted speed limit on particular Cape size through Forge. I'll let you go with the warning this time." And Doug says, "Not that kind of warning. I just thought you might like to know, unbeknownst to you, a particular Autoland Change younger sibling is preparing to leave Cape Side for the summer. Seems he sold himself the Florida Keys for the next 3 months." And Joey says, "When does he leave?" And Doug says, "In a couple of days. I just thought you'd like to know before it was too late. Say something or do something." And Joey says, "Thank you." And Doug says, "It's not a problem, Miss Potter. Passenger's vibes is typically officer's pro and quo." Which I feel like throughout this whole show, we kind of see Doug and Pacey kind of slowly built this relationship, especially in season 3. And Doug was the first one to really know outside of Jen that he has feelings, and he comes out and kind of says it. He says that he has butterflies. And I feel like when you come to that conclusion, it's kind of like Doug is really the one person that Pacey kind of trusts besides Jen. And he knows, even though Doug is not, part of his friend group, he won't judge him in a sense that needs to be judged. What about Dawson and all this kind of stuff? He just kind of listens to him. Which, even though Pacey can be a jerk to Doug, it kind of goes back to how Doug is always there for Pacey in the sense of a sibling. People make Doug kind of seem terrible to Pacey, and I feel like in season 1, yeah, he is, but in season 2 and season 3, I think Doug is the person that Pacey really needs, that older, wise advice that he can't get from his dad. So then we have scene 1 of Pacey and Joey, where they're outside of the grocery store, and Joey's waiting outside as Pacey is carrying a bag and eating a candy bar. And when he sees Joey, he goes, "Want a bite?" which always cracks me up. He just offers the candy bar. And after everything you do, Pacey, you offer her a candy bar again. Add that to my list of everything he has done. And Joey says, "This is your solution." And Pacey says, "What are you talking about?" And Joey says, "You're leaving." And Pacey says, "Uh-huh." And Joey says, "Just when things get tough, you pack up and leave." And Pacey says, "Well, the general idea, yeah." And Joey says, "Oh, real mature, Pacey." And Pacey says, "Well, what do you want me to do? Sit around all summer and watch from afar as you and Dawson attempt to reestablish your unending relationship? No thanks." And Joey says, "Well, I expected you to at least say goodbye." And Pacey says, "Oh yeah, the goodbye scene. Played that one over in my head 1,000 times. I come up to you, heart in a hand, and announce my plans. You look at me, pain. But then, of course, the Potter sarcasm kicks in, and I never get what I came for." And Joey says, "Is that what it is, Pacey?" And Pacey says, "You never asked me to stay. Ever." And Joey says, "Look, that's not my decision." And Pacey says, "Yes, it is. It always has been. You're too afraid to make it, and let's be honest with each other. The decision to be together or to not be together has always been yours." And Joey says, "All I asked for was time." And Pacey says, "And that's exactly what you got. And you get 3 more months of it." And Joey says, I may be undecisive, Pacey, but at least I'm not running away. You can dress up in any way you want, Pacey. It comes down to the same thing. You're giving up." And Pacey says, "I'm giving up." And Joey says, "Yeah, you." And Pacey says, "Me." And Joey says, "Mm-hmm." And Pacey says, "Haha. Turn around. It's your wall." And Joey says, "Mm-hmm." And Pacey says, "It's unfinished. Just like us." And Joey says, "Believe it or not, Pacey, this is not the ending that I asked for." And Pacey says, me either, but it's the ending we got, isn't it? And Joey says, yeah, I guess it is. So I feel like with this, it's, when I first heard him say, like, it's the wall that's unfinished and that's a relationship, my heart literally broke, because it was kind of like, after everything they've been through, that wall was still right there. And I feel like she wanted to make it perfect, and she wanted to make it, like, great with that wall, and she knew that whatever she put on that wall, it was going to stay there. And she was kind of too afraid to do that. But, like, when you think about it, she had plenty of time to figure out what she wanted and figure out how she did it. And Pacey was like, you know what? You could ask me to stay because there's so many things. Just ask me to stay. You never asked me to stay. And it's the honest truth. I mean, she doesn't ask him to stay throughout this, and she doesn't ask him to stay until, like, I believe episode 22 of season 4, where she goes, can you stay with me? Like, can I stay with you or something like that? And I feel like it was kind of like that. And this scene was him, like, nonchalantly kind of being like, I'm not gonna push you to ask me, but I think you need to ask me. I think that's kind of what it was. And Joey still doesn't, and it was kind of sad, but Pacey's reasons were all the good ones. So then we have scene 3 of Joey, where she's in the backyard and Mitch and Gail are doing the rehearsal for the wedding with the reverends present and Joey and Dawson as well. And the reverend says, at this time, Gail will begin her vows to Mitch. And she goes, no offense, Reverend, but I have at least 20 people coming for dinner in about an hour. And Mitch says, and seeing as Gail and I have done this before, and Reverend says, go on, we'll have to do the rest when it's real. And Gail says, thank you, Reverend. And Mitch and Gail leave and to do their things, and Dawson and Joey are left there. And Dawson says, I haven't finished my best man speech. Any thoughts? And Joey says, oh, I don't have much to say about the relationships these days, Dawson. And Dawson says, as someplace else you'd rather be, why don't you just go? Which is kind of mean. Like, yeah, she doesn't want to be there, but, like, you could be a little bit nicer. And Joey goes, what are you talking about? And Dawson says, do I have to spell it out for you? Pacey's going away party. And Joey says, I'm here, aren't I? And Dawson says, yeah, in the body and not in the spirit. You got nothing positive to say. You're basically going through emotions with the skull on your face. And Joey says, Dawson, I'm doing the best I can. Can you cut me some slack? And this is where I will always compare Pacey and Joey in this moment, because Dawson says, cut me some slack, Joey. Don't make me feel like this. And Joey says, like what? And Dawson says, like, you're stuck with me. I don't deserve that. And Joey says, you're right. You don't. I'm sorry, Dawson. And Dawson says, well, why don't you just go, alright? Give the guy my best. And Joey says, I'm staying. But it's kind of like when last episode we heard that Pacey says, when Joey says, cut me some slack, he did. He cut her some slack. Like, okay, like, yeah, she's being a jerk, but whatever. And with this, Dawson was, like, kind of repeating her and being like, cut me some slack. Are you kidding me? Like, no. And it was kind of mean when you think about it. Like, alright, she's staying for you. Be nice. And so then we have scene 2 of Pacey, where they are in the True Loves, and Graham's, Jen, Andy, Jack, and Pacey are doing this go away party for Pacey. And Graham says, oh look, starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. Okay, who wants to make the first wish? And Jen says, oh my god, ow, that piece of crab shell chipped my tooth. Great, just what I needed permanently away from it. I need to keep men permanently away from me. And Andy says, well, if that doesn't work, you can always join me this summer in the Netherlands. And Jack says, at least you get to have a relationship before they fail. And Graham says, good grief, you all sounds like a bunch of old ladies. I love Grahams. And Jen says, Grams, it's been a couple of tough months. And Graham says, you don't know what tough is. And Jen says, no offense, Graham, but you have no idea what our lives are like. And Graham says, what do you think, I never been in love before? And Jen says, yeah, once with a man your entire life. And Graham says, when I was just a few years older than you, I was working at Benchwitz's hospital. And I met a boy who was the most beautiful blue eyes I've ever seen. He was leaving Brussels in the morning, but we had a glorious entire day on the beach. And at the end of the day, he leaned me in close and whispered, will you wait for me? And Andy says, so what'd you do? And Graham says, I froze. I knew if I leaned in just 2 inches closer, the world as I knew it would be changed forever. And Jack says, so you did nothing? And Andy says, you didn't kiss him? You didn't speak to him? You did nothing? Nothing? And Jack says, did you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you kissed him? And Graham says, that's just the point. I don't wonder. The very next day, I got my best friend Sally to cover my shift for me. And after 7 hours and the Crows hold on at 7:30, I arrived in San Diego with a straight to the dock, and I went to a entire crew of U.S. Missouri. I kissed him. And Jen says, that's funny. I had no idea Grant was in the Korean War. And Graham says, he wasn't. Thomas Cooper. The boy was the most beautiful eyes I ever seen. Died in Peru in the shallow water before he ever made it off the boat. 2 years later, I married a grandfather, so I had 46 wonderful years with one man and one perfect kiss with another, and I had no regrets. Wonder how many of you will be able to say that in your life. And I think this kind of leads to what Pacey does later, and I feel like with Grams, it was kind of Pacey's way of kind of saying, hey, like this is my chance, like someone is clearly telling, like the universe is clearly telling me that I need to do this. So then we have scene 4 of Joey where she cuts to the backyard and Dawson is there when Gail comes up and Gail says, have you seen Dan? And Dawson says, no. Have you seen Joey? And Gail says, no. And it cuts to Dawson finding Joey, and Dawson says, Bessie called. She said she wanted to stop by the store on your way home. And Joey says, thanks. And Dawson says, Joey, about this afternoon, I don't want to fight. That's the last thing I want to do. And Joey says, well, I don't either. I don't want to fight either, Dawson. I'm sorry. If we have to be honest in the relationship, Dawson, then there's something you should know. I broke things with Pacey, not entirely, but the large part. I don't want to lose you. I may have lived across the creek, but only when I was rowing in the direction that I actually felt like I was rowing home. You're so much of my life, Dawson. I mean, your home is my home, your family is my family, and there's not a single significant event I experienced where you haven't experienced it with me. And I was so afraid of losing that, but that wasn't the choice. And I thought that if there was a chance that you would forgive me, I may have chosen differently, and you deserve to know. So, I feel like this was kind of Joey saying, hey, I want to be with Pacey, but I know that you'll never forgive me because you're my whole life, and so therefore, if I go with Pacey, I know that this will never be the same, and if you forgive me, I would choose differently. That's exactly what she was saying. There was no, I may have chose differently. Yeah, she would have chose differently. And he did deserve to know. And I think he needed to know that straight up. But also, in a sense, he knew that. He knew that the whole entire time. Dawson just likes to be sugar-coated the whole... he was like, oh, okay. Rose tried to sugar-coat it. And then finally she's like, hey, I know, I said this before, but I need you to know this. And then we have scene 2 of Pacey and Joey, and they're on the corner near Joey's wall, and Joey walks up around the corner carrying a bag when Pacey, who has been waiting for her, takes a bottle out of the bag, and he just drinks the milk. And he said, what took you so long? I got thirsty. I called Bessie and she called you. I tell you, it is not easy finishing things off. And Joey says, Pacey, what does this mean? And Pacey says, well, it means you're right. That leaving would be giving up on you, and I'm not quite ready to prepare to do that yet. But it also means that I know that you're not prepared to give up on me yet. So, that being said, I refer to this hasty yet adorable written SOS, which kind of speaks for itself. I spent an hour and a half staring at this half-beaten wall after we talked last night, just staring and thinking. So the way I figured it, it's your turn to stare now. And he walks away, and Pacey leaves Joey to stare at the ask me to stay wall. And this was one of the best scenes, probably. I think this is the second best scene because I think they remember me, but also it was kind of like he took what Graham said and he took what Joey said and he mashed them together, and finally he was saying like, this is me, and I need you to ask me to stay because that's your way of saying you love me too. And it was kind of like written all over this wall, like big and clear and red, like I love you. Like that's kind of what it was. Ask me to stay. Wait, ask me to stay. I love you, Joey. Like it was kind of like that. Like, you know what I mean? So then we have the next scene, which is scene 3 of Pacey and Joey. And Pacey stares at Joey as she's there with Gail and Dawson and Mitch. And they're outside of Dawson's back porch, and Joey goes up to Pacey waiting there, and Joey says, look, I can't do it, Pacey. I can't give you a reason to stay. I have so much junk to work through. I don't even know where I begin to process it all. How I feel about you and how I feel about Dawson. And Pacey says, then you made your choice right there. You made a good choice. Good for you. And Joey says, I guess I have, yeah. And Pacey said, wasn't that hard? Should have made it months ago. Save us a lot of time and energy and heartache. And Dawson comes up out of the house carrying a camera, and Dawson says, I see the members of the triangle are present and accounted for, which is kind of mean. And Joey says, can I have this camera? And she says, I'm going to take some pictures. And Pacey says, Joe? And Joey says, yep. And Pacey says, don't I even get a goodbye? And Joey says, goodbye, Pacey. Which is funny because he didn't even want a goodbye. And then suddenly when she's sitting there, she was like, let me just take that camera. And that could have been their last words, but it's just proof that there's so much chemistry going on. And Joey takes the camera and leaves them too. And Dawson says, just wondering, what the hell are you doing? And Pacey says, ease up, man. I'm here for the wedding. And it was kind of like, at this moment, like, Pacey and Dawson have been friends since they were 5. And so Joey's allowed to be at this wedding after everything they've been through. But Pacey isn't. Like, Pacey's not allowed to, like, be at Mitch and Gail's wedding, who's probably been better parents than his parents. And all of a sudden, Dawson's like, what are you doing here? And Dawson says, last I heard, you were selling the 7 C's. And Pacey says, as deed I am, tomorrow. Today, I'm here for your parents. And Dawson says, I'm sure to pass on your congratulations. And Pacey says, yeah, speaking of congratulations, I guess I should be passing some to you. And Dawson says, what are you talking about? And Pacey says, well, she made her choice. Dawson, you're it. You're what I got. Things are going to not be the same between us, are they? And Dawson says, no. And Pacey says, yeah, I don't think so. And it was kind of sad, like, after all these years of them being friends, like, Dawson chose Joey over Pacey. It's not Joey choosing Dawson over Pacey. It was Dawson choosing Pacey over, like, choosing Joey over Pacey. And it was kind of sad when you think about it. Like, they've been friends for probably longer than Joey and Pacey. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, no, I choose the girl over you. It's so mean. And so then we have scene 6 of Joey. And Dawson and Joey are dancing, and you can tell that she is just plainly upset. Like, it is written all over her face. And it's the scene in the backyard, and Dawson is giving the best man speech, and Joey is watching him as Mitch and Gail are enjoying every word, and Dawson says, this is my first time my parents got married, and they were very young. It's a video of. them too. And he says, they are just out of college, and I remember looking at the photo album as kids, wondering why I wasn't in any photos. It's hard when you love someone that you can imagine them this entire life that you aren't there for it. And I have to say, being here today, experience this firsthand, finally getting to know to be in all the pictures, I wouldn't trade this for anything. Because I'd rather be a part of what you guys have now than the point where everything is forgiven. And I think that's really love is. And that you can forgive everything. So to my parents who taught me that love does not conquer, that love ends and begins again. And the guy says, "Hear, hear." And at one point, Pacey and Joey just stare at each other. And I just want to say, it's kind of funny that he's talking about forgiveness when he does not forgive Pacey at all. Like, love conquers all. And I'm like, you can still love your friend. Like, you can still love your guy friend. But, hey, like, obviously your parents did not taught you that. And now we're on to the best scene of Dawson and this whole entire show. If you know that crying face, that's why I'm laughing, because I have it like right in front of me, and every time I look at it, it makes me laugh. Actually, fun fact, if you ever play quizzes, or yeah, that's what it is. I used to play that in school, and they used to have memes. Whenever you lost, you would like have a meme, and Dawson was one of them. And I think I was like in 5th grade or something, and it was kind of funny thinking back on that now. So we're on Dawson's pier, and Joey and Dawson are alone, and Dawson says, "Hey," and Joey says, "Your speech was beautiful," and Dawson says, "Thanks." And Joey says, "What you said, did you mean it, Dawson?" And Dawson says, "Every word, which is why you should turn around and go to Pacey." And Joey says, "What?" And Dawson says, "Last year you had the opportunity to go to Paris and study, and because of me, you didn't." And Joey says, "Dawson, that wasn't your fault." And Dawson says what everyone else is thinking. "Yeah, it was. Joey, I should have made you go, but I was selfish, and I didn't want you to go. I wanted you to stay here with me, and I refused to make that decision again." And Joey says, "Well, Dawson, I mean, what if it was my choice? What if I wanted to stay?" And Joey says, "Joey, come on. Even I can see it." Which is proof that she's upset. If Dawson can see it, therefore she's upset. And he says, "Pacey is this year's parents, and this time you have to go. You have to see it for yourself, alright? I can stand here and tell you that every consolation mistake and all the roads lead back to me. That's gonna make every bit of a difference. Words and speeches sound great, but they don't add up to anything. All that matters right now is what you want." And Joey says, "I don't even know what I want, Dawson." And I feel like that was kind of a lie. Like, she's like, "I don't even know what I want." And I'm like, Joey, you screamed at him in episode 20 that you need him. Like, you know that you need him. And finally it just hits Dawson. Like, oh yeah, she kind of needs him. Like, that might be good. And Dawson says, "Yes, you do. You want him. You want him like I want you. You love him like I love you." And he laughs, and he says, "The only difference is he loves you back the same way. And you deserve that, okay? And I'm not going to be the one who stands in the way of that. You're free. You can do whatever you want." And Joey says, "But Dawson, I want us to still be friends, and I want you to not hate me." And Dawson says, "They're just words, Joey." I don't know why that always makes me laugh. They're words. Because after you've done displaying your pleasures here, you're going to turn around and you're going to walk away from me, aren't you? And Joey says, "I have to, otherwise I'll never know." And Dawson says, "Just go." And Joey's like, "But Dawson." And Dawson's like, "Go, Joey, I'm telling you, before I take it all back. Just go, go." Even if he takes it all back, like, at this point, Dawson, it doesn't really matter. Like, you could take it all back, but like, you said those words, and you said it pretty loud and clear for her to understand. And I feel like when Joey's like, I have to go, otherwise I would never know, it kind of goes back to Paris. Like, I feel like Paris is such a good example with this. I mean, when you think about it, every single season, there's always someone leaving and going and all this different kind of stuff, starting with season 2, where Dawson leaves and Joey stays, and then season 3, where this happens. I feel like when you think about it, like, every time something happens, like, yeah, she should have gone to Paris, but it would have not been good for the drama show. But when you think about it, she stayed because of Dawson, and Dawson was basically saying, I can't let you stay because of me this time. Because if I made you miserable the whole entire summer, I would never be able to forgive myself. Like, I would never be able to say, oh, geez, like, like, I love you and you love me too, and I know that you love him. Because he's basically saying, like, I can see it in your eyes. And it took him, like 3 episodes to kind of realize that. And it was kind of sad. Like, when you think about it, there's so much going on and there's so much to be said. But he was thinking about himself. And I think finally Dawson took that moment and was very selfless. And I feel like when he did that, it was one of those scenes where he did it not for himself, but for her. And it took a lot out of him. You can see it in his eyes. You can see the crying face that just shows emotions and power. And instead of walking away from him, she runs, which I always find pretty funny. So then we have the last scene of season 3, and it's the best scene of Pacey and Joey and the whole scene. I keep saying that, but it's true. And so they're on the docks by True Love, and Joey comes running down the pier trying to catch up with Pacey, but he's walking from behind her, and Joey's like panicking. She's like, Pacey, 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 Pace, Pacey. And Pacey's like, you want something, Joe? And Joey says, I want to talk to you. And Pacey's like, no, a little bit too late for that. I'm leaving. You can't stop me, so don't even try. And Joey says, no, that's not why I'm here. Pacey goes, so why are you here? You want another goodbye again? Maybe you want to rub him a little bit? And Joey says, look, I don't want to stop you, Pacey. I don't want to stop you. I don't want to stop Dawson. And I don't want to be stopped, not neither by either of you, not by anyone else. I mean, that's what this whole year has been about. We've been challenging each other from moving on and growing up, but not you. I mean, you're different, and you're challenged me every step of the way, and you've been there every step of the way. Which is true. Like, he's been there for the B&B, and he's been there when she needed someone to encourage her with painting, and it was the complete opposite of Dawson. I feel like that's why she chose Pacey. And Pacey says, Joe, tutorial time is in T-minus 30 seconds. So there's a point to this. I suggest you get to it. And Joey says, I think I'm in love with you. And Pacey goes, you think or you know? And Joey says, I know. I know that the moment you kissed me, and maybe even before that. And scary as it is, I don't want to deny it anymore, Pacey. I don't want to run from it. I don't want to let it run from me. And Pacey says, so what are we gonna do, Joe? And Joey says, I want to come with you. And Pacey says, what? Are you crazy? And Joey says, I want to stop standing still. I want to move forward. I want to come with you. And Pacey says, what about Bessie and the B&B? They need you. And Joey finally says the words that she said to Dawson, not as much as I need you, Pacey. And Pacey is just stunned. And she's about to come on the boat, and he goes, And Joey says, permission to come aboard? And Pacey says, permission granted. He goes, you can swim, right? And Joey says, of course. I'm just kind of worried about the next change of clothes. And Pacey says, like, when they get on the boat and they sail away, he goes, that's nothing to worry about. We'll hit the next port in a few days. And Joey says, few days? And Pacey says, yeah, or a few days after that. Who really cares? And then that is it. That is it for season 3. And I feel like in this season, there's so much to talk about in this scene. Like, in season 6, like, we see Pacey and Joey kind of talk about the same thing that they just talked about, where she didn't want to run away anymore. Her whole life she was running away, And finally, Joey takes that chance. Like, she is so scared throughout the whole, like, I believe, like, probably 15 episodes or something like that, where she's been scared of what Dawson thinks about her and Pacey and how she feels and all this other kind of stuff, like 10 episodes maybe. And it wasn't really, like, that was kind of Pacey's point of view. Like, that was kind of how he was. Like, he was scared of Dawson. He was scared what Dawson was going to say. But then there's Joey, who had no clue up until like 5 episodes ago, where finally she was taking that chance. She was taking a risk, and she was going away from Dawson. Like, she was going away from that toxic scene. Like, it was something where she knew that if she didn't go, she was never gonna know. And even though she didn't hear Grant's speech, I feel like that was really one of the big things that Joey has ever done, where she took a chance and she did what she knew was right. She didn't care about Pacey. She didn't care about the B&B like she normally was. She didn't care because school was over, summer work can be done. Like, she didn't have to change her clothes. She just went and took a chance. And even though Pacey was confused at the beginning, like, he finally got what she was saying. Like, he was like, wow, like, Joey actually did this. Like, Joey did so much than I could ever do. And I think that was kind of the moral of the story in this episode and this whole season, was Joey finally moving on. And I think, yeah, Dawson and Joey have been talking about moving on for so long, and finally I feel like they do. And obviously in season 5 and season 6, Dawson and Joey are together again, but season 4 is a whole thing of just Pacey and Joey. And there's so much that happened in that season, but I feel like at this moment, this is when she was over Dawson. Like, this was when she was truly over Dawson, and she was into Pacey. And when she left that, like, she left with the boat, she took everything that she had with Dawson and her and just made it so much more. And I feel like that was kind of the big point of this whole episode. I feel like there was so much going on, and there was so much, like, tension going on throughout the whole, like, past 3 episodes, but really, like, it was the main point that she chose Pacey. Like, that was who she chose. So that's the end of season 3, but I'm going to go over my top 5 moments of season 3. So my top 1 is I Remember Everything. Like we talked about last episode, I feel like when I remember everything, it was literally the opposite of everything that Pacey and Dawson went through. I feel like when they did that, it took so much out of that episode and just made it completely beautiful. There was so much going on, but Pacey took a chance and he took a risk just like Joey did on this episode. I think the top 2 was Ask Me to Stay. We already talked about that in this episode, but I feel like the moral of that story was him taking his, like what Graham says, and really made it what he wants it to be. And then my top 2 is going, like, to count to 10. When he goes, I'm going to count to 10, and if you don't want me to kiss you, I guess you're just going to have to stop me. And that was a beautiful scene. Like, he did not, like, take it and, like, say, like, this is what I want you to do, and just kisses her like Dawson did last episode. I feel like when Dawson kisses her, like, yeah, she was like, oh, that was a great kiss. But I think she needed Pacey more at that moment because it made her feel alive. And then the top 4 was Roadside Kiss. I feel like that was such a big moment. And I feel like when he kisses her, he finally took a chance. And he didn't really care what Dawson thought, but he did at the same time. He knew that was going to be a big deal. But at that moment, he was so good at it. And he was so amazing when he told her, like, I'm going to kiss you. Like, or he said that later, but at this moment, he didn't even tell her. He just did it. And she did not stop him. Like, I think that was the moment that we all knew that Joey was going to fall for Pacey. And then the top 5 moment that we have is teaching her how to drive, because I think at this moment it showed how much patience and kindness he had towards her. I feel like there was so much going on, but in this moment, it was like everything that they had together was building up, and this was one of the build-up. So the last thing I want to talk about is the growth of Joey and Pacey in this season. I feel like this was a big thing because we didn't talk about this last season because there wasn't so much between them two, but this season there was a lot that was going on. So I think on Joey's side, Joey grew because she learned to let go of Dawson and open herself up to Pacey. She learned at this moment not to go to her safe place, and she goes to the one thing that made her happy. And what I mean about that was, like, she had to learn throughout the whole season that Pacey could be her new safe place. That Dawson was that guy who she always went to and she always wanted to go to, but Dawson kind of cut her out in the beginning of the season. And obviously, in the end of the season, he kind of turned it back, like, wait a minute, that's not actually what I meant when I said, like, I needed time. Like, I thought you were going to come back to me. And I think when she learned who Pacey was and she learned his true colors, that's when she fell in love with him. And that's when everything that happened, everything that went on, everything that made them who they are, came in this season because she let go of Dawson in some type of way. So then we have Pacey's side, where Pacey grew because he changed in a lot of ways. The ways he stepped up and let Joey be, but mostly because he wasn't afraid of what Dawson would say or how Dawson would feel, because there was a special thing forming, and it wasn't that Pacey was doing it to hurt Dawson, but he was doing it because he knew that he needed to do this for himself. He knew that there was types of feelings that would never go away, and this time Joey felt the same. So it was different than how they felt when they first kissed, when Pacey kissed her in the beginning in season 1, episode 10. I feel like it goes back to that, where Pacey finally had that moment where he didn't care. I feel like it would have been the same in season 1, but at the same time it wouldn't. I feel like they needed a lot of growth, and there was a lot of unknown with Dawson, and there was a lot of unknown with Pacey himself. And I feel like Pacey needed Andy in order to get to the moment that he was right now, because Andy even, like, tells him, like, you need to do this, you need to go. And then with Grams, she also, like, kind of says that in her own little way. And I feel like after everyone telling him to go, I feel like that was the moment where Pacey really figured out what it meant to fall in love and what it meant to be with someone. And when you think about it that way, there was so much going on in this whole season, but the main thing was that Pacey and Joey changed as a couple in so many type of ways. Like, there were so many things going on, there were so many things that were happening, but at the end of the day, like, Pacey and Joey felt for each other. They felt for each other in ways that they could not explain, in ways that were there and weren't there, and it was just a beautiful season to have them. And I think it wouldn't be my favorite season, because I personally think season 5 was probably one of my favorite seasons, as them two as individuals and kind of as a couple, because there was a lot of things going on. And season 6 was really good, but I would say this was one of my top favorite seasons. I can't tell you what is my favorite season. Someone asked me that, and I was like, honestly, I don't even know, because there's so many things that go on in the show where I'm like, wow, that's such a good moment. Like, I think I said this throughout the whole season 3, where I'm like, wow, that's a good moment, that might be my favorite moment, that might be my favorite moment, that might be my favorite moment. But really, I don't think I have a favorite moment. I think it's just everything that goes on and everything that happens. I feel like when you take it to that account, when you take it to everything that happened, Pacey and Joey changed in so many ways in this season that just made it absolutely beautiful. Like, finally, there's so much, like, rebound stages, but they end up together and they go through, like, where Dawson rejected, like, Joey, and Pacey rejected Andy after she cheated. Like, there were so many things that go on, but they had to lean on each other and they had to count on each other. So, if you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's Jacey's Creek Podcast, where I post every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's also other platforms that you can listen to, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure to review this podcast with kind words, please, only. Make sure you comment, subscribe, share, whatever you need to do. And also, you can catch every episode again on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I would love to hear your thoughts on Instagram. That's Witter and Potter. And my TikTok is Pacey and Joey. I hope to see you guys again Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I love hearing your guys' thoughts, so please, 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 please make sure to comment down below. Bye, guys.